Okay. Well, on that note, welcome to Beyond the Collar, everybody, where we will not be breaking each other's ankles and feet, hopefully. At least not here with the next 50 minutes. No fetish shaming here. But today we will be talking about transparency and boundaries within polyamory. And I'm here with Mary and I's Master Joshua, who will for the next 50 minutes be known solely as Joshua, correct?
Correct.
Yes. I'm Natalie. This is Mary, who's on my screen to the right, but will probably be somewhere else on yours. And this is the second, is this the first of October? No, this is September still. This is the first month where we've had our master join us in the conversations for the past 5 months, I believe. I think. 5 or 6 months?
I've been sitting in the background sometimes doing
Listening.
the administrative stuff, listening, spying on the conversations, and when given permission, thrown my 2 cents in.
Yes, but you found it to be helpful to listen to us.
Very helpful as a dominant in a power exchange relationship or multiple power exchange relationships, to hear the perspectives and what you guys are experiencing, how you guys are processing, the language that you're using that I'm missing because we converse differently, or the language is used differently. So to be able to sit and listen to what you guys are sharing, it's like, oh my God, but wait a second. That's not how I was coming from. It's like there's so much that has been misunderstood just from the absence of information. And thankfully nothing detrimental, but enough to point out that this conversation can benefit from opening up to a wider umbrella so that dominants can come in and hear perspective and then share perspective from what it's like on the other side of the slash. But coming into the conversation as equals, right? Understanding that I'm no one's master on here aside from you and you. And as submissive, you're only submissive to me. And everyone here is on an equal platform, given the range and the space to share or ask questions, because that's what community is about. And that's how we grow and learn. So I thank you guys for what you guys have kicked off and allowing me to come and participate, because I also get to explore and talk about my submissive side too, and my curiosities or experiences from there. So it's like, it really helps me process things that I don't have a lot of exposure or experience in.
Yeah, no, and it helps to have your expertise in your practice and experience of dominance, as well as your experience or a budding experience, you could say. I don't know what you call it as a submissive person. not person, but putting yourself in that role.
I mean, because there's things that I desire or I missed, or I feel I've missed opportunity to engage in, right? It's like the structure of following someone in which you trust and believe that they will walk with you and you won't be harmed, right? I've not been given a lot of space. When I began my journey, I didn't get a lot of space to be authentic, right? I was put into positions to where I had to be a leader, or I was someone who was trusted, so I had to lead. And it was like, I worked with what I had and it felt right and it felt safe, but I also didn't find people I could trust. The first few years here in New York City, there was no one that I trusted to mentor me because their actions didn't match their words. Mm-hmm. And it was like, so what do we do? Right? And it comes back to the integrity and the transparency and how to maintain these relationships so that you're growing and not breaking.
Yeah, and respecting each other, and learning how to communicate needs and wants as they change all the time, which we'll talk about. And so to get into that, we are going to record the meeting, and we are also streaming on TikTok and Instagram.
Recording in progress.
Thank you, Mary. We don't want anybody to stray away from not feeling comfortable to share, and whether that means you can always share in the chat, but you can also ask to unmute or put a little hand up like some people have been doing at the react button at the bottom of your screen, and we will ask you to unmute Unfortunately, we've had to take away your privilege of unmuting yourself because we've had some fun people come and try to pop porn into this call, which doesn't make any sense because
If they knew who we were and what we did.
it doesn't make any sense. So, yes, so if you'd like to talk, just raise your hand or ask one of us to unmute. I think we're both co-hosts, so it would work either way. And another thing I would like to say that is necessary is that these conversations are all perspective-based and experience-based. We are not, how would you say? I mean, you're an educator, but this isn't an education-based
It's all our
lecture.
personal experiences and relationships with these subjects. By no means don't take anything we say as the hard and fast rule to most of this, unless we're talking about consent and being safe and advocating for yourself. But learn from multiple sources, get different perspectives, keep what works, and disregard what doesn't.
Mm-hmm. Did I miss anything, Mary?
I'll just reassure everyone here on Zoom that if you do want to stay on camera, Natalie and my cameras are pinned, so you guys aren't even a part of the video, so please continue to feel free to show us your faces. We always love seeing everyone.
Yeah, and if you feel the desire to share, but you don't want your voice to be recorded and posted somewhere, send an email or a message to Mary and I on beyond.the.collar or to the Kink Collective FetLife, and I can edit it out.
Awesome. Kink is customizable. Thank you, lady.
So,
Do we want to
transparency.
kick it off?
Yeah.
Start with the question.
Yes. What is the topic again? I know what it is, but I keep messing up what I actually. Transparency and boundaries within polyamory, correct?
Yes. Yeah. So our very first question is, what is polyamory? What is ethical non-monogamy? What makes you polyamorous? And how did you find this relationship model?
4 questions
I'll
in
turn it over
one.
to the boss man who started it all.
So, did we pull up the definitions for polyamory?
I did, but it's on my phone.
So, let's read the definition of polyamory. Here, use this.
My phone is being used as a streaming platform.
For Instagram.
No worries, I got the definition.
Oh, shoot it.
So, polyamory is the practice of engaging in multiple romantic and typically sexual relationships with the consent of all people involved.
Awesome. So, I was doing uncovered conversations with a few covered masters, Master Ren being one of them, and he had shared every relationship is polyamorous to the degree in which you accept someone as who they are and you love them, right? So, like, we have family, we have different levels and abilities in loving people. For me, polyamory also includes the romance. Having a romantic investment and a life investment with the person or people, right? That is not just, and this is for me personally, it's not just sexual hookups, but we have an investment into the outcome of our interest, what we're building, what we're creating, what we're co-creating, and life choices are made with them in consideration, right? They are part of the conversation. It's not just play partners or people in which I engage with who don't have a deeper impact in my day-to-day. Ethical non-monogamy, did you pull up a definition for that one?
When I looked it up earlier, it basically said it was the same thing. But
I think ethical
wrong.
non-monogamy is the larger umbrella because you have different types of
Polyamory.
ethical non-monogamous relationships, like open relationships, polyamory, and then there's a whole spew of them. But the ethical non-monogamy is making sure you're doing shit correctly, where people are informed, shit's transparent, everyone's brought up to speed on what's going on. Ethics being governed by society's expectations of behavior, right? This is what, because morals and ethics aren't the same thing, but ethical non-monogamy is what's governing society, right? And it's how people treat each other and the expected rules to be followed. Don't be a dick, right? Truth, understanding that we're all human beings and it's not easy to bat 1,000, right? Because we have things we have to unlearn, unpack, dismantling the monogamous system that most of us were raised under and having to move through that, right? So what makes me polyamorous is the investment into the relationships, the power exchanges, and the romantic elements that are involved with them, and the life plans that are involved with them. And how did I find this model, relationship model? I got tired of cheating. I didn't have a place to be authentic. I didn't have a place that a person could acknowledge that I am a person who loves differently, and the heartache that came with it. Just tired of disappointing people, tired of not being able to speak my truth and having other people have their expectations set on me. And it's a very painful process to not be able to speak that part of myself. Now, I don't wish polyamory on my worst enemy, because it also requires you to do a lot of righting wrongs and changing behaviors and processing the past and why did I behave this way, and acknowledging that the behaviors didn't benefit you, right? So it's like it's a tough journey to get on without someone to bounce off and process what you're trying to unlearn in order to go into a realm that is truly how you feel. Because no one ever sat me down and taught me that shit.
Yeah, I would agree. Be prepared to become triggered all the time. But the thing is, that's only in the beginning. If you don't fight those feelings of... Because insecurity and jealousy are, truthfully, for me at least, I believe, just masked emotions for stuff that I've been pushing down, or stuff that I haven't processed, or information that has been programmed into me by myself or by other people, my parents, society, whatsoever. So in the beginning, which has been almost 2 years now, where I've been involved in polyamory, and I discovered it through Mr. Joshua here. I mean, I knew of it, but I was never monogamous. I never defined myself in any sort of relationship model. And I recently had a conversation with somebody where I said I probably would have never full throttled put myself into polyamory without falling in love with somebody who was polyamorous themselves. And I'm not saying that as I'm not a polyamorous person, but I'm saying that as I had to become so triggered so many times in order to reap the benefits and find out why polyamory is the right relationship model for me. But otherwise, I would not have stepped into it, at least for another, 10, 20 years, I don't know. But what makes me polyamorous? It logically makes sense. Not always intuitively, because intuitively it can, no, I don't want to say intuitively. Not always emotionally it doesn't make sense, because I still have emotions and foundation that I've created that I need to unravel and redetermine as sound information for myself. But it matches my belief system. And for that, I know that it's the relationship model that it is for me if it matches all of my beliefs, and I can determine that it's not that my intuition and my gut feeling is telling me what's happening is wrong, but it is what has been taught to me or what I've taken in and said, no, this is how it's supposed to be, like that judgmental self-critic ego sort of situation. If that makes sense.
Nope, lost me. Yes.
So thank you. Mary?
I always feel like this question is so difficult because I never considered myself polyamorous till this life found me. Similar to Natalie, I wasn't with polyamorous people. I didn't know polyamorous people. The first polyamorous person I met was Master Joshua, and I think falling into it just felt natural. Because one, there's no pressure. I've come from very monogamous relationships, and it always felt like there was a lot of pressure to always have to be on, always have to be in the know of all the things, and it feels like amongst people you were able to like delegate, right? Like if I don't got it, someone else has it. and there's always consistent care, right, for the person that you love the most, which I think is something that is a gift in itself, of watching the person you love have so much love around them, and then also like the partners then becoming one in their own relationships, because while our relationship is founded off of we found each other through our same interest of person, we've also found a lot of things that connect us as people too. And I think the reason why I'm going to take this question as why I'm drawn to polyamory is because of the love and the nurturing that comes with the collective relationships. And I think that you guys both covered it very beautifully, and knowing that when you do love difference, it just feels right when you're with your people. And while it's not something that we wish on anyone, for the collective growth that you all have to do together, like you all have to show up, whether you're angry, happy, sad, whatever, and be willing to open up with open arms to whatever comes. In that same breath, the dynamic of your people, it kind of excels all other relationships, because you're not just with one people, you're with 2 or 3 or 5. Like it can continuously grow, and it's a learning curve for sure. And I don't know that you ever get polyamory right, but you continuously learn till you make it what's right for you.
Yeah, I think somebody said maybe it was an uncovered conversation call that polyamory is like having a doctorate in relationships in terms of if you want to put it in academic terms or an academic standpoint.
And that's why I say it's not like I don't wish it on my worst enemy, because the damage that is going to cause when you make the mistakes, right? You're going to cause hurt. You're not going to get it right. And it's like you're trying to process and develop and grow yourself within a relationship, learning how to be truthful and transparent to the best of your ability. If you're pursuing this BDSM and leather journey to the best of your ability, right? It's like you're trying to be this best version of yourself with everybody. Now imagine taking on a vulnerable love interest where it's going to introduce vulnerability and risk, and then multiply that by more than one person. It's like, what are you, crazy? But the risk versus reward is like, because the other thing about this personal relationship of mine / ours is you're all dominant women. You're all dominant people, so it's like you're not submissive. So I don't see it as I'm governing anyone. I'm not governing anybody. It's like you're all governing yourselves because you're all adults and strong people, and we are building in one direction, right? So that's how it's personalized to me, because I've had to toss around my ego and I had to kick down my machismo early on in this journey of actually having to step up to do what's right to make this shit work. And then it's like I wanted relationship anarchy, where each relationship is independent and on its own. And to a degree, that's how each relationship was formed, because each person didn't start off with a relationship with everyone. I connected with you because I felt something with you, and how we grew and the trust that we built and the communications that we had is what made me feel, yes, you are a safe investment, that I will put it on the line to introduce you to everyone, so that you can see how you connect with them, because I'm not rushing through this stuff, right? And it's like, I'm not looking to bring people on. It just so happens to be that, oh my God, you're an amazing person. Tell me more, right? And then that tell me more grows into a deeper connection. It's like, you make me feel strong. You make me feel whole. Let me tell you about, and by then you've already been learning about me and us. Right? But I also don't want to just rush to introduce somebody in because they're hot, or, oh my God, what we can do together, because that can really mess up the formula of the polycule. Right? The minute someone rubs wrong, it's like, oh shit, right? So I want to make sure I avoid that well ahead of time. But there's a lot of responsibility in polyamory that we grow up, and you grow up fast if you're doing it ethically and morally sound. It's gonna hurt.
So let's go into the next question. In your own current experience, how do you determine the difference between a need and a want? Somebody said a need is mandatory and a want is a preference. I follow a similar. I think that a need is something that you need in order to survive, and a want is something that you need to thrive. But it's also like that's wishy-washy a bit, because some would say that in order to survive, you need to thrive. So, but that's what came to my head today.
Needs, essential elements that contribute to my own well-being and stability within the relationship. These needs often stem from fundamental aspects of human psychology and emotional health. Wants pertain to desires or preferences that enhance the relationship but are not strictly necessary for its survival or health. I was going to say exactly that. Thank you, Master Hurricane. No, that's a solid answer. That's a solid answer.
So look, survival, not necessary. Yes, that was really well put.
Yeah.
But how do you determine your own? Like, how do you determine what is a need and what is a want? Because for me, sometimes I put things in the need category that are actually, once I sit with it as a need, I'm like, actually, this is not something that I need in order to grow. And that's why the survival or thrive definition for me sometimes sits not as correct.
Mary?
Sorry, my daughter is wide awake, so if you hear her screaming, my apologies. It's funny that you said that, Natalie, because I'm the opposite. I think that in trying to identify my value and the things that I appreciate most about myself, I'd say, oh, I want this. It'd be like a nice to have type of thing, but truly those are deep needs of like what I rob myself from. And I think by pushing them to want, I almost take away the value of what I need in the relationship, because I make everything like a stagnant, like, oh yeah, that'd be cool, or oh, if that was to go down, like that would make my day. But really there's a layer deeper to discover there.
What I'm really realizing in this question is my absence of self-advocacy. I don't talk about what I need or what I want often because I'm more often taking care of someone else's needs or wants. And to be able to sit with, well, what do I need is something that I struggle with, right? Because I need to write down a needs and wants list, because I have a lot of needs that I probably never even mentioned because I've been too busy caretaking and too busy doing, and not enough time to sit and say, dude, you're going to be 46 in a month and you're not the same person, and you get tired and you need help, and you want support, right? And there's a lot of shit to that question.
Yeah. I think sometimes because my needs and wants are constantly changing, and there are weeks where I need something every day, and then there are months where I need something only one day out of the week. And it's like, and even then it changes, because then I don't need it for like 2 months. And then I'm like, oh, why do I need this again? And why has this turned into a lesser priority on my needs list? So it's constantly not even reevaluating what the difference between my needs and my wants, but putting them in perspective, especially in consideration with everyone else. In the polycule, sometimes it's rearranging my needs and my priorities and knowing that there will be another time.
Well, I want to call that out before we come to you, V. We'll come to you. But what you just said is so important, Natalie, is that we're talking about self-advocation of needs and wants just in ourselves. When you add the layer of, okay, now I'm sharing space with other partners, other people, it's like your mind does something odd of sorts, but it's like your submission comes out. Like for me, like submission comes out, and I almost put myself at the end. Okay, cool, I'm gonna take care of everyone else, or okay, cool, I'm gonna let them run the scene. And sometimes too, what I realize is like, okay, I'm gonna allow this person to drive the space because they'll do that for me in the future. And then when that doesn't happen, I get almost mad of like, well, how don't they know? And it's like all of these wants and needs have to be articulated as like, let's sit down as a polyamorous group and talk about, I need this when I'm in the space with all of you, right? And having those self-advocation conversations across the board.
Yeah, and especially says, and we're gonna get down to communication in a bit, but the key part for me in terms of polyamory and needs and wants is for sure trying to figure out my own needs and wants and sit with them and change the priorities and switch it around and be open and curious about my own needs and wants all the time, but also checking in with everybody and learning what everyone else's needs and wants are, because that's how you really start to determine like, okay, wait, I need this right now, but actually this person needs this way more. But there's a lot of comments.
That'll be a good conversation to have. And something to do regularly as things change, right? How do we keep those avenues of communication open so that we are up to date with our ever evolving life? Awesome, thank you. V, you had your hand up. And then we'll get to the comments.
Okay. I'm still figuring out how to do this. This goes, I don't know, this question or just this topic brings a lot of fire in my belly, because it's like, well, like, do you even know what you need and want? Because society, community, like individual, like relationships, just like what you guys were saying about like the like putting yourself first, like and like advocating for yourself because you are worthy, because but then you also have to consider, okay, where everyone else is in that moment in time. So it's like, it's a lot, but it's also a wonderful thing to be open to communicate, because we weren't taught how to communicate, like we were definitely not taught to communicate or how to advocate for ourselves. And that's a whole other level of a conversation. But I think this is such a beautiful topic to really dive into that question, and to ask yourself what you need, and go in further and deeper and start like just the act of like making yourself something to eat, deciding when to get up for you and not for the other person, maybe dedicating a day where like this is a me day where I decide what I want. And because the more you invest in yourself and advocate for yourself, you could bring back, like I used to, like, people say, I'll take care of you if you take care of me. If you say, I'll take care of me for you, if you could take care of you for me. So then there's that level of like, it's just ads, I don't know, just ads. And polyamory's love, man. It's all love, and like we're all here, we're not fucking perfect, like, so like it goes beyond the communication. Like it's an understanding that we're flawed, and every moment is different, and each person is their own history and body and memory of an individual. So every moment is going to be different, and every need and want is going to interchange with the person, with the time, with when it happens. And I get this all through jiu-jitsu too, by the way, so I'm just saying.
Thank you.
I get it through training jiu-jitsu, not lying.
Thank you.
It makes me think of childhood, when you're to be seen and not heard, right? It's like you lose your ability to advocate for what you want and what you need when you're a kid by shifting priorities, right? To feel like your needs or wants aren't as important as what's in front of us right now. So it's like I was trained out of it, right? What V shared made me, that feeling just popped into my mind almost, to link that together.
I think sometimes, because for me, the whole topic of self-advocation doesn't necessarily mean that I have to speak up and say, like, this is not, I don't want to say it like that. Like, this is what I need. Sometimes it is sitting silently, noticing what's going on in my head, what emotions are arising, and then taking in the circumstances of everybody. And the self-advocation for me is the piece of introspection. I'm advocating for myself by introspecting and saying, okay, let me put all of this on a map, on a chessboard, and see what's going on, because that for me is like, I don't need to speak up right now because it's not that it's the right time, but it's not the right time. I can wait. And sometimes I can't wait, and that is that is also a part of self-advocating, standing up for myself in that situation. But sometimes it is staying back, noticing what's going on in my head, and then the self-advocation portion is allowing myself to introspect and sit with that all.
Cool, thank you. Oh, sorry, the comments. The way I try to differentiate between a need and a want is if I don't have something and it negatively impacts my mental health or my ability to show up to my relationships in a healthy way.
That was from TikTok. And we have a couple of here.
I want my partner to accompany me when I'm in the hospital. It's a 2-week thing, migraines. But honestly, really, I need them to come at least a few days to see my reality. You really need to know yourself to determine your needs and wants, introspection, internal dialogue. Also knowing where you are of value and be brave to tell people what you want, what you need. Be direct and know that you are deserving of getting what you want and need. My partner says, my therapist says I need to spend more time thinking about my needs rather than trying to address others' needs and wants. I have to define needs and wants. I have to learn and know what my body, my mind, my emotions, and myself requires for a healthy existence, doing what I love. And what would just make it a bit better, but not change the quality control. I can't define a need and a want, but I can define what is necessary to keep my quality control stable versus what would just make my smile a bit bigger. Mm-hmm. People taught me that it's okay to tell my needs and wants. It is not okay to take care of everybody else's needs and wants. Awesome, thank you for that. Needs are an honest reflection of what you truly desire. Wants are goals that you want to strive for. I think it can be scary to speak a need because it can put you at odds with a partner. It's important to stand in them for your own mental health. To add to the question, would you say your needs and wants are different in different relationships? Maybe needs are stable while wants fluctuate? Are they both more about you or more about your relationship?
What do you say? I believe yes.
Yeah,
my
absolutely.
needs, yes, 100%.
Absolutely. For me, a need is something that's constantly there, a recurring feeling, action, or emotion that's set in place, versus a want is something that pops out of the blue, or like an example, seeing something or hearing something and wanting to experience a kink. With that comes a lot of sitting with your own feelings and thoughts and how that makes you feel and where that falls into place. That's what I struggle with, putting people's needs and wants before my own. Personally, my needs fluctuate more than my wants, especially as a disabled person. My needs one day may be different than the next. Maybe I had energy to clean the house this week, and maybe I need my partner to come and help me clean the house before my brain can think further than the dishes. But if the house is already clean, then my needs are very different because that means a host of other things. I had energy, my brain had good rest and plenty of spoons of all sizes. I don't have to space my time to allow for doing required upkeep, etc., etc. Very positively, a lot of fantastic comments.
Yeah, it makes me think we need to do a whole needs and wants conversation.
Yeah, on and off TikTok. Let's see, where were the questions at?
I can read us in. I feel like the next two questions kind of go hand in hand, and in the spirit of time, I figure we can combine them. So, the next couple of questions is, what is a boundary? How do you determine them? And then what does transparency mean to you? And how do you remain honest yet respectful of each partner within your polycule?
So, one of the biggest checks I've ever gotten was from Slave Karma about 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. And what I was doing was I was managing information because I thought it would be easier, knowing that if she had all the information, it would offset her for the weekend. Meaning I was going away to do a psychedelic journey and sit with someone, with one of my play partners. We weren't going up to have a good time, we were going up to work. So I determined that it wasn't necessary for them to know, for Karma to know exactly who I was going up with, just that I was going up there. And I was doing it to prevent her from going off and feeling a certain kind of way, because that relationship was new. And when there's new relationships into polycules, right, it's like, oh shit, right? Like it's a real thing. So I was trying to mitigate that by managing the information. And one thing led to another, and she found out. I wasn't even up there yet, and she found out. But no, I was up there actually. Fuck yeah, I was up there, because the ass chewing I got was essentially, if you don't trust me with all the information, what are we doing? Like, if you don't trust me, what are we doing? And that's where I realized that I have to step up to the plate with all the information when presented the opportunity, right? Because as Natalie said, sometimes there's a right place and sometimes there's a wrong time. And I could have passed that information on well before I left and could have had no issues because I could have leaned into it. Or I could have done this dumb shit and learned a hard lesson. And I'm thankful I learned the lesson, but it comes, again, you're gonna, and then, because it's not just polyamory, but it's also power exchange in polyamory. I'm the master, you're the submissive, or you're the slave. Actually, that's how our relationship went from submissive to slave. She said, because I watch what you're doing, and if you're leading me, that behavior leads me to believe it's acceptable. And if that's not acceptable, you can't do it. What am I supposed to do? Yes, ma'am. Right? And I realized the depth of investment and commitment to us and to me and to herself through that statement. And it totally shifted our relationship and my relationships from that point forward. And I'm thankful for the mistakes that I've learned from. And I look forward to learning from the other ones that I keep making that I haven't learned from yet.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Big Daddy.
To go with that, Josh, that is so true. You know, it's something that I think that us Doms forget. You know, information is information. It is powerful, but it's important. When I was on the road with Baby Girl in the beginning of us trying to figure out what does DSMS mean to us, right? The very beginning of what we were doing here. I was all over the road, and I was out, and I would do things. Most of the time, I would tell her what I was doing before I would go do it. But if I didn't get that into our flow of the day, right? If it was okay, she knew by the end of the next day, we had a conversation. She knew what I was up to. I still felt the need to express to her, yeah, I went out last night. I went up with some strange chick that I met and tied her up, or I did ABC, but yeah, I was out. I had a good time. You know, it was important, and I felt that in my heart. The weight of just talking it off was something new, and it really is important, I think.
Awesome, thank you. Do you guys want to answer that?
Yeah, I had a hard time. Okay, sorry, I'm reading this confusing message. I had a hard time determining what my definition of a boundary is. I think that it's similar to a limit, but I think that boundaries can be put up when they don't always need to be put up. I say that because I think for a while, when I became stressed, I would panic, and I felt that I needed to set some sort of organization, like a boundary, to say this is not okay with me. And period. But now when I start feeling stressed because of some reason within my relationships with everybody, I put myself in that scenario a couple more times so that I can notice where I'm at. Because a lot of the time it's not about like I need to put a boundary up here. It's about why am I feeling these uncomfortable emotions and how do I have a conversation with the person that I'm sharing or that I'm having these uncomfortable emotions with in the scenario to come to a conclusion and like renegotiate and talk about why I'm having them. And it's not always about processing the emotions, because I can do that with my therapist, but it's about talking about what I've been noticing and trying to come to a conclusion on how we can move forward more than anything. But then there's also, so it's, for me, that's, boundaries are almost like a temporary wall that I have to put up in order to keep and protect myself, but they're also not always necessary. Limits are necessary, I think. But that definition could change tomorrow. Again, I had a hard time. This was just me processing all of that. And for the next, what does transparency mean to you? I mean, I want to say like open and honest communication, but that doesn't necessarily fit. I mean, within polyamory, transparency is different for each and every person. Open and honest communication always for each person, but what other partners want to know and what they don't want to know depends on the person. So it's just constantly checking in with that person and practicing what they have told you their needs and wants are, and then checking in with them after you think that you've been practicing what they've said to make sure that you're following in line, and checking in to see if that's changed or if you need to do something different. Because
with transparency in poly, you also have to remember respect of other people's boundaries and privacy too, right? Because that's a tough line to walk sometimes, because it's like, what is necessary? What do you need and what do you want in regards to information? And then what is acceptable when it comes to other people's information?
This is the next question, by the way.
Oh, shit.
Pretty funny though, because you definitely did not look at it. So, good job. Mary, we'll go into the next one.
Back a little. So I would say, when I define a boundary, I think of them as healthy boundaries and unhealthy boundaries. I think unhealthy boundaries were like the walls that you were sharing, Natalie, of like, I'm running into this with you and like, I need to place this in order for us to like find a path of least resistance and continue the efforts of putting the time and connection into the relationships. Healthy boundaries though are the playing fields of, if you're gonna come into my world, this is what you need to respect and this is where we're gonna play in. And there is no ifs, ands, buts about it. These are the boundaries that we have to follow. As somebody that is disabled and a mother, like, those were very big call outs of like, my child will always come first. Like, and embracing that, right? Of, it's also that piece of needs, wants, advocation, but the boundaries are the level set. The needs and wants are what fills up those boundaries of like, now that you're in my playing field, here are the things that I desire, and here are the things that I additionally need that layer more, because one of those needs can be, I need you to respect my boundaries. And it should be, I need you to respect my boundaries. As you kind of go through it, I've had a lot of people come to me to ask, like, how do you determine, how do I get to know what a boundary is? And think about every facet of your life, financially, connection-wise. Talk about your kids, things of that nature. Like, just go that layer deep and make a list for yourselves on your phone and ask your question of, if someone was to ask about your finances, what happens in your body? Like, and that's how you start to like identify, like, here's where the things you're good to interact with me, and here are the things I don't want you to, which are also boundaries. Transparency, I feel like we've covered it. I will encourage anyone that is currently seeking a polyamorous relationship in one, please always keep honest with your people, especially if you have multiple partners. I think what happens is that we were talking about the respect of the relationships. I think in our polycule primarily, like our relationship with Joshua is independent from the relationships we all carry with one another, and it's saying that whatever, when me and Joshua go away, like I'm not gonna sit and tell you everything that happened. I'm gonna talk to you just like I would tell a friend. However, I think there are things, especially as you layer things intimately and take that step forward, sometimes people know things that they shouldn't, and like they spill, and it's like, oh, I thought you knew. Those are the types of things that, like, I think if you're transparent in advance, that result ends less, because I think that when you're playing with transparency, I think that kind of ties in with honesty, and like those two things are like pillars of your relationship. So I think that whether you're poly or not, those are fundamental things.
KinkCollective.net for information.
Sorry, that was for TikTok.
Sorry,
I was
passing information to join because someone wants to share, but they want to join and share. So KinkCollective.net, you'll find the link under our events. Sorry about that.
Yeah, and sometimes I think that I've found that you have to, in terms of transparency, you have to leave, how do I say this? Like, you have to leave transparency to another partner to share with another partner. Sometimes it's not your place to be transparent with that person. It's the other person's place to do that. So that's another thing.
And somebody said boundaries can be pushed, limits cannot. And I think that it depends on the relationship, because I feel like sometimes limits can, because sometimes it's a limit with everyone else but that person, or those people. I think that's the same with boundaries too. I think that interchangeably, while it's all about how you define it and how you approach it, I think you can explore limitations and things that, and don't get me wrong, there are firm things that you're absolutely like, nope, not gonna happen ever. But I think there's still some that you go, okay, like we'll give it a go and see what happens.
Yeah, see, like I had an experience where I participated in some sort of play and I was like, I'm never doing that again. But then like 3 weeks later, I was like, actually, I wonder if the hot sauce.
I felt that way about fire play. I swear, Joshua do these videos, and when I first met him for a session, I was like, you're not setting me on fire. Like, that's never gonna happen. And probably the next session we did fire play, because I saw him pull down the box, and I was like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm not setting you on fire. I just want to show you what it's like. And sure enough, it wasn't hot like hot sauce, but
no, it's still hot. Somebody said it feels like transparency goes back to the point about not trying to manage information, and also trusting your partners to be able to process the information and react genuinely.
Agreed. I think too, people with anxiety appreciate transparency, because if you don't tell somebody with anxiety, they have thought of every other outcome and have painted a picture that is totally different from what reality is. So when they hear reality, it almost feels false. I'm like, well, if it was just that, why couldn't I hear that? Or why couldn't I be in the know?
Yes, I agree. Please release me from the depths of my assumption making by just telling me what's going on so I can move forward. And that's my own practice as well. Like, my own practice is like stopping myself when I'm creating those assumptions and I'm beginning to overthink. But it's also very helpful to just be like, this is what's going on. And even if it's just very, like, not much information, but just this is what's going on, that's it. It's cool.
Right, and even if it feels fictitious, just saying it, because that's a need. Mm-hmm. You need to do that for yourselves, like if you run yourself into that wall consistently. Mm-hmm. And I think that was really important how you pointed out. It's a solo responsibility, but also like, and your shared partners of like, okay, you're doing it again. Like, you're going down this hole that's not happening. I think those reality checks, loving reality checks, are what keep us
yeah. No, it made me just think that maybe a need is something that I can characterize or put into place by, if I don't have it, I'm going to dig myself into the grave. In whatever way that looks, mentally, emotionally, not necessarily physically, but
that's
anyway.
Fair. I know we're waiting for our friend from TikTok. Do we want to go into our last question?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So what makes communicating between partners within your polycule formation difficult? Share one communication trick that works for you.
I think it goes back to needs and wants and boundaries, and it goes into emotions. And for me, I do believe, like I've said earlier in this call, that needs and wants and boundaries are constantly changing, and emotions sometimes take away our voice and our confidence in order to speak up about when they are changing, and that's when difficulty comes into play. Because if communication isn't being had, and the reason is because of the lack of confidence and emotions, and then it just starts to dwindle down, then it's what makes it very difficult to be able to not necessarily move forward, but it takes a lot longer for the piece on the chessboard to move forward than it should. But that's just life as well. So I don't know, a communication tool, check in with the people as often as you can. Whatever that looks like. Is this still okay if I do this? And then just go from there.
I gave my example earlier. I don't remember what it was, but I know I gave it.
What makes the communication difficult, do you feel?
What makes communication difficult? Fear. Fear makes communication difficult. Rejection. Anger, disappointments. Lack of drive. Absence of change in action. Right? Because it's like, I don't want to have to tell you the same thing 3 times. So then I just stop saying it. Or not wanting to feel certain ways.
Mary?
I knew you were. I was trying to think of something. I was like, let me find something in what you're sharing. I think what makes communication difficult too, and we've touched on it, but it's the lack of confidence in what you're sharing. And I think that a lot of the time that can be trauma built of like talking up and being put down. So a lot of the time articulating isn't always easy. But I think that falls down into fear of rejection as well, of being, if I put it out there, is that really my truth, right? I think with anxiety as well, like when you're communicating, we've talked about like the time and the place, but sometimes I even like beg to ask the question of like, is it real? Like, is it really happening? Or is this something that's triggering something that happened so long ago and it feels real, it feels present. But I think the more you do introspective work, while it's not a communication, I think that can be a communication tool. Let me start there. I think the more work you put into yourself, you're able to communicate more alert and more authentic. And I think it's because you've taken the time to sit with yourself and say, okay, I may have not always got this part right, or maybe I've heard this, but now I've heard it in a different way. So now I have the language and I have what I actually really want to say. So I think that's what I'll share as that takeaway is invest in yourself, invest in who you are, so you can authentically be able to communicate.
Thank you. There's a couple of comments. Should I read them or should we just...
No, she will do it.
Yeah? Okay. Let's see, where does it start? There's so many. I think here.
Yeah.
Power can make communication difficult. I mean, specifically related to our social identities as well as our insecurities. That would be a great topic to discuss. I have found that a lot of subs and or slaves I have interacted with have anxiety and overthink, myself included, especially as I come from a trauma background and read into every reaction or non-reaction and go through 18,000 different scenarios when things aren't explained up front. I recognize reflection and thought needs to happen before a response sometimes, but the response is absolutely necessary for me to move forward.
There's dominance as well that suffer from that anxiety and overthinking big time. big time. It's not just it's not a power trait. It's a part of a person's identity. It just looks different with the dominant.
Someone said 100%. We don't know what we don't know. Acknowledging that it's okay to say no, and can we just kick this around and see what we think? Yes, judgment-free conversation is always helpful. What are your thoughts on group chats with multiple partners?
When they work?
Yeah, get the buy-in of all the people, if you can. Because most times that's a space thing too, of like, if it works.
Yeah, because sometimes that's not a preferred form of communication, and it can be annoying. It can also be absent emotion or context in text, and that can lead to misunderstandings. So it can be hit or miss, man. I like to do it when we're making plans. All right, this is what's happening. This is where we're meeting. This is the ticket information, shit like that. But as a standard form of communication, it hasn't always been so hot.
Yeah, in person and dinners are nice.
Yeah.
Someone said, you know how people joke, I wish I had a user's manual for my wife/husband/partner? Well, I wrote one, and it's a living document. It's updated and shared at every update with my partners. They don't have to reread it all every time. It's been updated about 6 times in 5 years, but it's there if they want to refer back or see what's changed. My memory is unreliable, so I wrote it down.
That's awesome.
Pretty awesome.
That's a really great. That's really cool. I'd love to see that, Grace, because it's like everyone's different. There's no cookie cutter approach to relationships and polyamory, and for most people, we haven't been taught the various forms of communication, so we make mistakes, and then we have to find the grace and compassion for ourselves, and then understand it from other people. And it's like there's a whole ball of yarn that we're trying to unravel.
It would be so lovely to have a genuine communication class growing up.
Listen,
Life skills.
That's a rabbit hole I can go down. The public education system, right?
Home ec instead, life skills, or in addition, you know.
Yeah. Wow, these were really incredible questions and eye-opening.
For sure. And I want to thank everyone for sharing. You guys know what we're going to ask you to drop in the chat, but also as you guys are taking time to process a lot of this too, I realize that a lot of the time when we talk about boundaries, needs, wants, advocation, that can also be very difficult subjects. So please know that the 3 of us are always here to continuously support you, as well as our leather family. So if you guys ever need anything at all, you can reach out to us on Instagram at beyond.the.collar, or through the Kink Collective social platforms as well, and kinkcollective.net. And I'll turn it to you guys for last comments.
Yes, so next week we'll be here, same time, same place, and we will have Slave Karma with us, which is Joshua's 3rd slave.
Listen,
I don't know how to say that. Like,
yeah, it's multi-layered. It's not for the weak.
But we're gonna have a lot of slaves in the room.
We're gonna have a conversation.
All the people.
We're gonna have a conversation about our beginnings and where we're at and how we came to be, and it will be very, I think, interesting and therapeutic, hopefully.
And traumatic.
We'll find out, but come and watch. It's gonna be
come
awesome.
and watch the massacre of Master Joshua on fucking Zoom.
But otherwise, at the Kink Collective, what's happening?
A ton of stuff. We're taking a break from October 16th, 19th to November 16th to we're expanding our education system. It's now a 9-part series, step series of the Conscious Kinky Partner, where you learn about yourself through introspection and sharing on different levels and doing different types of work with and for yourself to become a more conscious partner and being more mindful of your wants and your needs, the same shit we were talking about tonight, but also to how to learn to have those conversations with not just your romantic interests, but everybody in your life, because we all just want to be a conscious person, right? To be mindful and present, and how do we effectively take what we've learned here and integrate it everywhere. So stay tuned for that. I know you guys usually ask, where's everyone tuning in from? We didn't get to ask that today, but it's always a pleasure to see where everyone is tuning in from. So please drop in your cities too, man. We'd like to see how far we're reaching with these conversations. But with that said, thank you so much again for this evening.
Yes.
Recording stopped.
We'll stay on for a couple of moments if anybody has questions. Hey, lots of Canadians.
I still can't get over Lizzie every time. Australia. That's commitment, man.
Jennifer.
Hey, this is for Joshua specifically because you are a Dom. This is a problem I'm running into myself. So I identify as solo polyamorous, and I have 2 male subs right now, and I am trying to be very mindful about transparency with both of them. But I find that one of the challenges, it's a stupid challenge, but it's happening. The fact that I'm a mistress and can tell people what to do sometimes makes me have to think extra hard about being transparent. And I'm wondering how you've navigated that yourself.
So they're dominant women in their day-to-day life. I don't see myself as their master. I see myself as their, I don't approach it from master slave, I approach it from master student. With the idea of in a sense, they're my partners in helping me achieve my goals and me helping them achieve their goals. I think of it in context of sniper spotter, right? So the approach that I have with them is almost of equality. I need you to be on it and correct me if you see me going off track. All right, you have my best interest, I have your best interest, but this is very particular to me, my life, my military experience, and how I don't want to claim responsibility for anyone else's life and choices. I want you to be strong enough to make your own, and I will be here to hold you accountable in making those. But it's what I learned is straight up information, and if you can't roll with it, we're not meant to be here.
Right.
But then, as time goes on and emotions and we get tired, it's like it's not so easy to lead with an iron fist all the time, right? Because we need space and rest and compassion too, man. Right? It's tough because also when it comes to D-types, there isn't much of a support network out there, right? Who do I talk to when I make a mistake in my power exchange? And that's also important when it comes to this, is getting other people's experiences. So this is great. Thank you for asking. But it's necessary just to get different perspective. Did that answer a little bit?
Yeah, it helps a little bit. I mean, I realized part of my challenge is, first of all, I didn't think I'd suddenly have 2 DS relationships where I'd be Dom, right? So that was like the universe just going, okay, here you go. And you're solo poly, deal with it. It's working out well, but I always want to catch myself, and make sure that I'm not losing any lessons that I've worked on, in being transparent with partners and not letting the whole notion of being dominant obscure me from being transparent. So I appreciate your comments a great deal. Yeah.
You're very welcome. Ultimately, at the end of the day, just do what's right? Follow your moral compass and empower them through information. Right.
Okay.
And you're gonna make mistakes, and that's okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I almost made a really big one about a month ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
And you can talk to your S-types too and ask them how they'd like to hear that information. I think that would be very valuable to them because you give them the power from like their dominant, hearing that they get to choose how they hear that information and when and how they'd like to know in that setting. I think that's really empowering to kind of lend to those conversations too.
That's incredible, Mary. Thank you for saying that, because I'm just realizing that escaped me, even though they both know.
that I'm polyamorous. I have never actually asked that question, so thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks for coming on.
Yes.
Come back. Please.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Again, what a pleasure being able to sit and talk.
Yes.
All right. Well, with that, guys, have a great rest of your night, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.